Hi, my name is Brynna, and today we're going to talk about some alternatives to PageRank. So, Matt Cutts publicly said at PubCon that they're not interested in updating PageRank because Google has other projects that they're working on. So that kind of leaves all the webmasters and SEO firms out of the loop when they're trying to evaluate websites to use for link building campaigns or research, guest posting, their own site even. How do they know how they stack up to their competitors? Well, we're in a post-Panda and Penguin era. So we need to be conscious of looking at a site holistically, and we shouldn't be using just one metric to begin with. But since we are so used to using metrics, we need to look at a few of these things. We need to be looking at the trust of a site, the traffic, the social media presence, their backlinks. There are 1,000 factors that we could be looking at. Luckily, some firms and useful open source projects have been created so that we know all of these things in one easy to use tool. So here are some of the metrics that you can use if you're struggling without PageRank. So one of the alternatives that we can use to PageRank is called Mozrank, and it's actually been around for quite some time. It was invented by Moz, formerly SEO Moz, and it runs on a scale of 1 to 10, so it's an easy conversion from PageRank. It also uses a very similar set of factors to what PageRank used to measure their own criteria. So it's a very easy conversion, the numbers are still very similar, and they make that publicly available. There's plenty of plugins and there's an API you can even use. An alternative metric is called Semper Power, and it was developed by the people over at Semper Tools. Semper Power uses the backlinks pointing to a site to measure actually how powerful of a boost it has and can pass on to your site. If you're doing things like guest posting or link building services, this is a pretty powerful tool that you can use to guess how much you're going to get out of this link. Now, they've publicly come out and said it might not be the best metric, so they have tacked on their Semper Trust. So now you have Semper Power * Trust or Semper Power Trust, which actually looks into the trust of the website in addition to the backlinks. So you get a really full-fledged kind of view of the entire website, including its backlinks, which a lot of tools leave out, unfortunately. Now, the downside to Semper Power and Trust is that you do need to buy the plan in order to see individual sites more in depth. But they do provide some free tools that you can use, but they're not quite as good as others potentially. And the final tool that I'm going to mention is called Citation Flow and Trust Flow, developed by the people over at Majestic SEO. So Citation Flow it also takes into account the backlinks because it's using the citations. So if you're writing a paper or doing a guest post, normally you link to authoritative sources, and hence you're developing backlinks for those authoritative sources. So the trust flow is a little bit different, but the citation flow looks at just how many backlinks does a site have with a few other metrics and how often it's happening. Not just how many, but how often, because the more authoritative you are, the more often people are going to link to you. Whereas the trust flow actually looks at how authoritative the sites are that are linking to you. So it might only be a few PR9s linking to you, but that's still a pretty powerful metric. The important thing to note about these is that they are free, and you can use them in a free plugin that is downloadable through Majestic SEO's website. So some important things to remember from this video is that you can't just use one metric. We never should have been relying on just one metric, so this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to you. But just in case you are, PageRank is no longer good as a metric, and we need to look at other things like social presence, actually looking at the website, make sure there's not too many ads on the website, making sure that there's engagement and following, manually checking perhaps some of the backlinks. But there are other metrics that make this a nice tidy package that you can use. So check out Moz and Semper Tools and Majestic SEO for just a few of my favorite tools that can kind of replace PageRank.